Hello, GEMA members, and welcome to our next installment of GEMA Talks. Today, we have just a fantastic Hoya with us. I'm so excited to have her with us. We're going to have an incredibly rich conversation today. It's Regina Scully. Regina is one of the most prolific documentary film producers in the market. She has produced over 200 films through her Artemis Rising Foundation organization. We'll talk a lot about what that is all about. She had a earlier career in journalism and news media. She founded her own marketing communications agency. Prior to that, worked in the corporate world. So lots to speak about, but even more immediate, I'm really excited to talk to her today about a new documentary short film that premiered very recently on Netflix that she produced that stars her mother, called What Would Sophia Loren Do? And we're going to talk all about that. So I want to introduce Regina right now. Hello, Regina. How are you?
Hi, Rich. So wonderful to have this opportunity to speak with you. Thank you. Thank you for that very thorough introduction. Thank you.
I'm really excited about so many pieces to talk about, and so many interesting parts of the industry that you've been in. So this is going to be great. As I mentioned, you've had this incredible documentary film career, and we're going to talk a lot about that. But I want to first start, because it just recently launched on Netflix, and I want everyone to know about it. I want to first talk about the new film, What Would Sophia Loren Do? If you can just right off the bat, just tell people a little bit about what it's about.
Sure. Thank you, Rich. Oh, okay. It's a short documentary. It's 32 minutes, and it is called What Would Sophia Loren Do? And it is about my Italian mother, but honestly, it could be about anybody's mom, and it could be about anybody's family. And it's about, it really speaks to who we are. How do we become who we are? How do we wind up where we are? And how did we get there? And a lot of it has to do with, how we were raised and the people around us, and where did we get our little nuggets of wisdom along the way, and from whom. And in this case, I do focus on my mom, although both my parents are lovely. My dad too, and he's in the film, but I'm focusing on my mom, who I think you've seen the film. She's a character.
Absolutely wonderful film. Everybody needs to see this film.
Thank you. And she would buy the title came from the fact that as I was growing up, and even now, whenever she thought I was getting a little too straying maybe from my core values or my roots, she'd say, Regina, what would Sophia Loren do? And so it just became a metaphorical catchphrase. And then my girlfriend started saying it, and then I brought it into my workforce, and then my colleagues started saying it. And one by one, we said, this could wind up being a very fun project. But it's, at the end of the day, it's charming and it's lighthearted and it's fun, but it does also cover a lot of deep, wonderful, it does. Issues.
So as you said, she used this catchphrase. So it's one thing to hear that phrase and think it's wonderful and appealing, but then how does that go from that to making it into a movie? What were some of the, and obviously because you're a filmmaker, that is certainly an advantage you had, but how did that come about?
It's a good question. And honestly, the way the narrative arc goes and where it takes us was not the original plan. And so I really did start with wanting to just even film my mom for my niece, nephews, and her grandkids, really to have a wonderful heirloom, and a kind of a legacy project.
Right.
And then because it became so full and rich and fun, and the director that I'm working with, just a world-class, Academy Award-winning director, Ross Kaufman, and a spectacular producer, my co-producer, Robin Honan. And after we started interviewing my mom, Nancy, her name is Nancy Vincenza, we realized, this could be a little bit more than just for the grandkids.
Yeah.
A lot of people could enjoy this. And so from that came more interviews with my mom. And from that, then we included my dad, and we had, their interaction. And then that opened up even more pathways. And then the Sophia Loren element entered into it, which we absolutely had no idea from the beginning. And then that helped it transform into an even, another layer of a film and a story. So it had different components.
Can you speak specifically for the audience about explaining how she utilized her films, Sophia Loren's films, like to help guide her?
Sure. And that's the thing about this film, is it does demonstrate, Rich, and you and I know this, we're both in this industry, media, film work, communications, and it's always a revelation to see how art, media, films, cinema, how they really inform us and how our lives are infused with characters and storylines, and we go back to things we've seen before, or we have times in our life, major benchmarks, we can actually attach them to different things that we've seen and stories that we love. And so cinema and art really are woven into the story of Nancy's life. And she's had major happenings go on. And she was paralleling them to the different films she watched in Sophia Loren's career, and how they did sort of inform her and inspire her and entertain her, all those things. But we're watching both stories and both women, seemingly so different, but with a lot of parallels.
It's, that piece is just, obviously a wonderful part of the whole story, and woven in so beautifully during it. And was, I guess, one obvious question, and I know this is a tad bit of a spoiler alert, so sorry, but Sophia Loren's involvement in this film, was that something you assumed from the beginning and that was a key part of making it happen, or did that happen serendipitously? Like, how did that part come about?
Listen, it's a great question. And even when I because it's starting to get a lot of buzz and people are writing about it, and it's a word of mouth film. And now we're getting letters from Ireland, from Slovenia, from
Wow.
Italy, from the UK. I mean, it's been really, which really shows it's touching some universal truths in all of our lives, because it's a film about love and loss and resilience and joy. So we had those themes already just from my mom and my family and just life unfolding. But with the Sophia element and showing all of her film work, then all of a sudden we're infusing our film with Italian cinema and Italian neorealism, and Carlo Ponti, who was her husband, who was a film producer, and what they did together, and her family. And all of a sudden it has a whole other layer of just love of cinema.
Yeah.
And so, I actually got to meet Sophia at an event where she won an award in New York. Everything happens in New York City, at an award. And through a very close friend of mine and a film partner, Maria Cuomo Cole, and her mom, Matilda, who's the widower of former governor Mario Cuomo of New York. They had known Sophia Loren for years, also Italian families. And so she said, Regina, let's go to this event. You have to meet her. And so I did get to meet her, and I did get to meet her son, her wonderful son, Eduardo, who is so talented a director, who's the person who directed her feature film that's out now, The Life Ahead, which is also on Netflix.
It's on Netflix, right?
I know, and I'm
good combo watch.
I know, and so we got to talking, and then life is life, and then we go our separate ways. It was not at all spoken about, but I did mention to him, I said, you have to hear the cutest story. I mean, I've been raised with my mom sort of invoking your mom, and what would she do? What would Sophia Loren do? And he got such a kick out of it. He wound up telling his mom the story, and she loved it. And so our paths crossed again. He said, I told my mom that story and she just loved it. And I said, wow, we're in the middle of filming. And I said, and he said, my mom's getting this other award in Los Angeles from the Academy Museum. And I'm involved with the Academy Museum. I'm on their board. I said, I'm on their board. It's such an amazing organization. I said, maybe we could we ever arrange a meeting between our two moms, while your mom's getting this award. And so that's really how it happened. It was so serendipitous. Wow. Had she not won that, had she not been getting that honor from the Academy Museum, had I not joined the board, had Eduardo and I not crossed paths, and then his project with his mom in the film brought her, she had to come, for meetings and things like that. So a lot of it was just life and timing, not to mention then COVID strikes.
Right. So did you shoot the film pre-COVID or some of it in COVID? How did you manage that?
We shot the majority of our film pre-COVID, as did Eduardo filming his mom in The Life Ahead. And as was the case with my filming my mom, Nancy Vincenza, for What Would Sophia Loren Do? So you can imagine, so we're filming at the same time. They had a jump start probably on us. Oh, no, we had been filming for a couple of years prior. Sorry. We've been collecting video. We've been collecting B-roll for the last 3 years. Then the life ahead starts. Now we're sort of co-filming, right? And then they filmed in the nick of time in Puglia, Italy. We filmed the most of our film also. We had to do a couple of taped Zoom interviews and phone, leaving phone messages with Nancy. And then, one final interview with Nancy where we were all masked up basically, but we got most of it done. And so the two ladies were able to meet, and it was just, there wasn't a dry eye in the
No,
house.
I was including me. I mean, that part.
Me too. Me too.
Really,
and I've seen it 100 times, and I keep crying every time.
So just for those who are filmmakers who are listening and who'll be interested in this, so is this a film that you've shot and funded fully, and then you went to sell it, or did you already have Netflix in mind, or how did that piece come about?
We, listen, I love Netflix, but we did not have Netflix in mind. We didn't even think that this, would be something that would be for broad distribution, honestly.
Wow.
And then, but as we started filming it and then watching it and then it was really in reactions from different people. We showed it to a lot of our colleagues, fellow directors and editors, and they just said, listen, this is really touching on so many important issues and heartfelt benchmarks and universal truths, as I said before. And so we thought, we really do have a film here. We decided not to make a feature. That was our biggest decision. We said, we're not going to do feature length. We're going to keep it into a short, because it does, as you know, it does touch upon some very serious things. And each of those mini chapters could have been a film in and of itself, right?
No, that's right.
So we didn't go that way. And rather than try to do a feature film and not go in deep enough, we decided to do a short and then hit all of our notes so that people could walk away saying, okay, we understand this connection and what these two women have been through and how kindred they are and how different they are, but how many similarities and actually how similar they are to them, to the viewer.
Right.
You really you finish watching that saying, wow, Sophia is so much like us.
Yeah.
So it's a very profound transformation for both, for the viewers as well as the characters in the story.
But I do think too, we've talked about this, but for me, I come from a very large Italian, close-knit Italian family in the Boston area. And I think you'll have so many, of course, this movie is for everybody, but certainly Italian specifically.
For sure.
There's so much resonance with the film. And I have so many relatives that remind me of your mom and just the whole joy of life and the way you approach life. It's really resonated. So for all our Italian friends out there, you absolutely have to see the film, but so does everybody else. One question for you, I'm interested, is there anything you learned about your mom through the making of this film, either that surprised you about her or anything new you learned about her or about her life or anything in her performance that was surprising to you? I'm just curious.
Well, that's, I did learn a few things about my mom during this whole process, and my dad for that matter. But number one, I've always known my mom is a very creative, incredibly creative person and very resilient. I didn't realize just how resilient. The depths of her strength and her faith. Everyone has their own what they believe in and or higher truths, whatever that is. And my mom certainly has a deep faith, and so I learned just how profound all of that is for her. And I also learned too how much I've grown up always watching movies. I used to go to the movies by myself as a little girl, and I'd go to 3 in a row.
Yeah, wow.
So but I realized just how much because she was raising 4 children. Yeah. So it wasn't like she could go dash off to the movie theater. Right. But what I did learn is how much she took such pleasure in movies and stories. And then I had no idea what a good storyteller. I mean, I knew she could tell a good story, but this was incredible the way she narrates this film.
Yep, no doubt.
So I did learn about her. It was quite a beautiful, beautiful experience.
You mentioned you learned something about your dad as well.
Yes, and about my father too. I learned about my father. I mean, there's a humility and a grace to my father that was so profoundly demonstrated through this
Mm,
whole process.
mm,
Just how he was so happy for my mom
mm,
to tell her story
mm.
from her perspective.
Yeah,
And I watched him just graciously, whether he had something to add or whether maybe he had a different viewpoint. We're all individuals, right? We all
right.
see things through our own lens. He was like, no, this is her time to tell her story and through her lens. And I am a guest at her party. So let's just say he was the perfect dinner guest
Yeah,
in this movie, right?
yeah, absolutely.
And
It's a good way to
so
phrase it.
yeah, it was very beautiful to watch that kind of um, support and
Yeah,
loving support, and also um, deep understanding and deep friendship. I
yeah,
realized I realized just how what a wonderful friendship my parents have. Not just a love story, what a
yeah.
wonderful friendship.
And what about yourself? Is there anything about you did this film impact you in a certain way, or anything about you that's changed or been altered because of this film?
Well, I as I said to you privately and earlier, I'm a little embarrassed to say this, but I'm really shocked to see what a stage daughter I am. And what a stage daughter I've become. I'm like, and she'd be great on this interview, and she'd be great on this interview, and I think everyone in the world should see this film. Anyway, I'm a little, because I don't promote really any of our films. That's not what we do. We make them because there's a real need,
Right.
and we're always, it's always a call to action in our
Yeah.
films,
Yeah.
and there's always a healing component into our films, and we're trying to change cultural norms, legislation,
Yeah.
behavior. We're shining a light on a lot of things. In this film, we are doing those things, just not so on our sleeve, right? It's not
Right.
so,
Not overtly. Yeah.
well, not overtly, thank you. But there's an element of joy in this film that's so contagious that I guess I'm just delighting in, talking about it and spreading the word, which I normally don't do for all of my films.
Yeah. And your mom's like, becoming this budding star now. She's like, getting the royal treatment here.
I know. First thing I had to do was put Netflix on there, install Netflix. I had to make them subscriber. My parents weren't, I know. I said, you're going to have to broaden your world beyond the Hallmark Channel. And Netflix, you're going to not only watch your film on Netflix, but other things on Netflix.
That's right.
So that was the first thing we did for them, was install it on their television set. And
Very funny.
but yes, like you asked me earlier, we didn't know. And to Netflix, to their credit, this came out of nowhere. It's a late entry.
Yeah.
Even for the kids, up for Academy consideration. We were last in line, last to make it, last deadline. We barely got in, like a minute before they closed the deadlines and things like that. But they just recognized, the sweetness of it, but that it was really a film for for the times right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
And I have to say, the management there, they took, it was like gloves off. This wasn't even like a business proposition. It wasn't even a business deal. That we didn't have one business meeting.
Mm.
It was only talking about, wow, how can we have people just see this film and delight in it? What
Mm.
can we do to have people have the fun we're having?
Yeah. The humanity of the film just bleeds through every minute.
That, well said. That's really kind of what happened. And they said, we would love to help you with this and have people watch it. And so it did happen quickly. They did take it on. I asked my parents first, well, do you mind, I said, Nonna, because of course her grandkids call her Nonna. I said, Nonna, Nonna, do you mind going global? Nonna's going global. So so she's like, well, I don't even think now I don't think they have a sense that people in Hong Kong, I just gotta, people in Hong Kong are watching
Right. All over the world.
And it doesn't matter what language it's in. It does not matter. You could even watch it with the sound off, right, Rich?
I think that's right. I think it's absolutely right. That's a good.
And you'd still take away a lot, Yeah. And so that part's been really fun. That's been, I think it's in 190 countries and 15 languages. And
wow.
It's
Well,
one of the stories.
congratulations again. And again, we highly recommend that all of our
Thank you.
Hoya friends see the film, and just go on Netflix and you'll see it there. So if we could maybe go sort of 30,000 feet now and talk about, because you created your film producing career later in life. And again, you've made over 200 films, and almost every one of them is touches on some kind of social justice issue and societal issue, and which is obviously quite remarkable. And so I'd love it if you wouldn't mind talking about how you got into producing documentary films, because it's a little bit of an unusual story, because it's not like you were making them since you were 20 years old. That you had some ties to the media world, but talk a little bit about how you got into it and what spurred it on.
You bet. Thank you. Well, as you know, I started off my career as in journalism and media news, then went into public relations, public affairs, and then went into marketing, consumer products, and things like that. But then around my early 40s, Rich, I did find out someone that I love very much was harmed in their childhood. There was abuse, and I never knew that. And that person's life kind of spiraled into drugs and alcohol and addiction. This lovely human being, an athlete, everything, smart. And I just always wondered what happened there. And I found out, later in life, I guess I might have been 40, 41 years old, well into my other career. I had a PR agency in Manhattan called RPR, Marketing Communications. Anyway, I was very snug as a bug in my own world in life. And it was through this person's story, who decided to tell their story actually in a film. So that was one film that came out, and then right on the heels of that, another film with my dear friend Jennifer Siebel Newsom. She wanted to do a story. She was acting at the time in Hollywood. She wanted to do a story called Misrepresentation. It was like concurrent. She said, "Listen, you can't believe the gender inequity and the stories that are going on." And so she said, "I want to do a film." And I said, "You know what? I think it's time for me to parlay my skills and my interest and passion in media and in communications. And I think I'm going to try my hand at storytelling in a different way." And so those, were the first few films that I did. And then The Invisible War came to my attention. That is about the rapes in the military.
Yeah.
And that just really turned my head. And so those, three projects really launched.
What years were that? That was around what, 10 years ago?
Oh, that was
12 years ago?
2008, 9, and 10.
Okay. Yeah.
Right around there.
Yeah.
And then I always say, and then The Hunting Ground, which was, the problems of abuse on college campuses. Those three films were the beginning. They were the starter log for the other 200. Yeah. And then we just realized, okay, this is a medium where we can really shine a light on issues that are in our culture because of shame, denial, and silence. Once you shine a light on these things and they see the light of day, then things start to change and happen. That's when real systemic change can happen. And so I really wanted to, and then the films that came into our orbit that we wanted to support, I call them DNA changers. We just knew, okay, these are issues, these are things that once you see these films and know what's going on, you're not the same person as you were before you have seen them. And they're all a call to action, and almost all of them have curricula that go with it.
Is that right?
So that's
an important piece.
Absolutely. It's part of our mission that can this film go to college campuses and high schools across the country, and many of our films are. And then we develop, as I said, a curriculum to go with them. So they have a lot, they're evergreens in a lot of ways. And that's really been the trajectory of why we just dove in so deep. And we do ask of our filmmakers to go deeper. Our stories go very, very deep. They're not cursory. They're not superficial. They go very, very deep. Even if there's humor involved, they still tackle things in a way that's very comprehensive.
So, again, for some people listening who may not be as aware of this world, typically documentary film, and although I will say now there's such an incredible golden age, given the huge demand of documentary film from all these streamers, but historically speaking, it's difficult to fund these films, and it's not easy to raise money for these films. So what you have done, I just have to applaud you for what you've brought into that industry, and the fact that there's a place people can go for a fair hearing in terms of trying to get their films made is huge. But specific to that, because you must get so many submissions now. You must see so many different people who are coming to you saying, I have this amazing film. And as you know, everyone's film is their baby. And what's the filter you use? Obviously, you touched on a couple things, but at the end of the day, how do you decide to pick a film over another one? Because you can't do them all.
Yeah, we do. We get deluged. So that's very true. And we now have a little bit of a mafia going on. So it is a lot through our system of filmmakers. You know, we've done multiple films with about a dozen filmmakers because they go in deep one area and then that leads to another. We all know how to work together.
Right, that trust, you built the trust.
So that's part of it. But a lot of first-time filmmakers we've helped launch so many first-time filmmakers.
Right.
We do put a focus on women, you know, but a lot of men too. You know, we don't discriminate, but there's a large body of the work is on first-time female filmmakers because they have such a hard time raising money. But it's really for all of these storytellers, and we look for issues. Number one, that we feel we can make a difference, and number two, that we know need a light, shown on them. So, and that they can inspire a call to action. That they can be seen in schools. Does this have the arms and legs to change legislation if that's what needs? I mean, the Invisible War, we've changed 35 pieces of legislation.
Wow.
People who are recruited into the military, it's part of the new recruit protocol to watch this film, The Invisible War. So we look to see what projects can have the teeth to have multiple uses in our culture.
And what do you think makes a successful documentary film producer? What are some of the pieces that you think you bring to the table that have been successful in your efforts?
I think a lot of our films, and certainly even the ones that we don't help produce, the successful ones, but a lot of the ones that we do, they speak to the heart, not just the head. I always look for something that speaks to the heart as well as the head. I mean, of course, you need the facts, you need the, you have to have the goods, but it's in the story, right, that's moving the person's heart, and it's about igniting what we all have within, and that's compassion. Not just compassion. I always say we look for things that are fiercely compassionate, and for filmmakers that are fiercely compassionate. And so that's a big part of it, because it's in the collective consciousness, when we see things and when we're all feeling these things and we all say, oh my gosh, we have to do something about it. That's when the needle shifts. That's when the needle moves. So we look for that. And it might not even be we don't ever look for something like, oh, what award can we win?
Right.
I mean, many of them have won lots of awards, but that's not why we do it.
No, that's always a sort of a, potentially byproduct of the work. Are you, in addition to the film with your mom, are you working on any other film right now, or in the process of helping produce any other film right now? And if so, could you give everyone a tidbit on what it may be about? Or?
Sure. Yes, we actually have quite a few films in the hopper. It's interesting. We've, as you know, a lot of our films are about healing and recovery, broadly defined.
Yeah.
And so we're looking more into things that are healing through the arts, healing through humor, because of course those things are just as important. We're doing kind of the history of the Alvin Ailey dance troupe,
Wow.
and it's just wonderful. We are oh God, there's so many. We have a film coming out now that's another layer into understanding the whole career of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Really focusing on how she changed the law, like why we have the freedoms we do because of the work she's done in the law. So that's a wonderful thing. It's called Ruth, and that's coming out soon too.
Oh, great.
Oh God, the list is so long, Rich. You caught me off guard, but
no, but those are great ones. Really good.
those are in the corner.
So now I want to really rewind and go back to college age. I think you grew up in New Jersey, right?
I did, in Bergen County, New Jersey.
All right. And was Georgetown sort of on your, is that like the place I always wanted to go? Or, you're like, hey, somebody mentioned Georgetown and it seemed great. Or I know you were in what used to be Ling Lang, the school Ling Lang, which doesn't exist anymore. Right. But talk a little bit about why Georgetown for you.
We had a family friend whose older child went to Georgetown and just spoke so highly of it.
Mm.
And also was on, and I had already had a class trip to Washington, D.C., and I just always loved Washington.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a very exciting, beautiful city. So with those two things, and then I went to visit the school, of course. I went to visit it. And it was really love at first sight. Sometimes we have visceral reactions to things. And this is what happened for me. I mean, there were a handful of other schools I liked very much, but I just stepped foot on that campus and I said, this is a school for me. I just knew
Sometimes
it.
it's hard to, I know what you mean. It's hard to pinpoint exactly or to articulate.
Right?
But
Did you find that? Did that happen for you
Oh,
for
yeah,
Georgetown?
100%. Yeah.
You found that too.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely.
Don't you find that most Hoyas, they don't stumble upon it by accident?
Yeah.
Most of the people I talk to are like, I wanted to go to Georgetown. That's the school I wanted. First on my list, I applied.
Yep.
It's not sort of a wishy-washy, I think, well, maybe. It's like
Right.
people are very, very emphatic about that place.
That's right. So what was your experience like there?
Well, I worked a lot when I was there. So I was sort of a student that, I went to summer school for 3 summers so that I could lighten my load during the year.
Wow.
So
Quite the ambitious student.
I know, and yet I wasn't one of those like, nerdy in the library all the time. But
I'll have to ask your friends about that.
no, another reason why I chose Georgetown is because that city and that whole area is so full of opportunities
Right.
for internships and jobs and just to supplement studies.
Right.
And that's what I wound up doing. And that's how I first worked for CNN in 1980. And that was the first, I think it was
Right, it just launched.
just brand new. And it was one of the first bureaus. And I just loved it. It was incredible.
Yeah.
And then I worked for Channel 5 for the Maury Povich show while I was still a student. And then I worked for Gray and Company, which was Robert Keith Gray's public affairs company. He was communications person for the Reagan administration, and he opened this public affairs agency. It was so fascinating. And then Hill and Knowlton bought that agency, and then I wound up working for Hill and Knowlton. So it just was full of opportunities for me.
You really took advantage of the work opportunities in DC. That's great. I
really did. I did an internship at the Italian embassy. You could let's put it this way: you could try a lot of hats on at Georgetown. Right? Sure. Just to say, do I like this? Do I like that? And so I did take advantage of that. And I did learn a lot, by the way. I learned a lot about what I didn't want to do. And that was really helpful.
Yeah. Did you, so when school ended, you did continue sort of in the media journalism sphere, right away?
Yes. Right from my graduation, I went right into a job for a public relations firm in New York. And I started working immediately and did that for a while. And then I went into the client side and started working for clients and consumer products, and primarily in the beauty industry, because I love all that. I like
you've worked for, you should let the folks know you've worked with some of the biggest global brands in that world, right?
Yes, international brands, L'Oreal, and also Christian Dior. For the US, both of them, and managing their public relations. So it was, and I had a great time doing it and I loved it. But then I had to go back to issue related products versus potions and lotions, which I do adore.
Potions and lotions.
I love potions and lotions, but it's my weak spot.
Then you made a pretty big decision to go on your own, which is, not always a simple decision to make. What kind of led you to decide to do that?
I had about 10 solid years in working for companies, agencies, and, real corporate life, and learned so much. I loved every single one of my experiences. But then I hit a point where I was like, when you kind of look around, you're like, there's no position that really interests me, after this one.
Right.
And so, and then I was starting to get a little bit itchy to do things in a little bit slightly more creative way than just staying in my lane.
Yeah.
And so I did branch off and start my own agency. And then the brand Neutrogena skincare, which is Johnson & Johnson, they launched my agency.
Okay.
back in 19, I guess, it was 1995, 96
Okay.
is when my agency started.
And you built that up over time, and it still exists, right? So you still a partner in that, but obviously now majority of your time is in filmmaking, but that company still is with us, right?
It sure is. We're on our 26th year.
Wow.
I do have a partner now. I ran it for the first 10 years. She's been running it for the last 15. And it's called RPR, Marketing Communications, and it's going strong. And we've just, it's been quite an experience. And then after my 10 years running it, and when my partner came in and took it over, that's when I was really full into the film world and making these documentaries. And so I do more administrative assistance than running day-to-day clients. She does all of that. I have a brilliant partner.
How have you utilized the expertise and knowledge in those worlds? And you think they've helped you when you have now moved into the documentary film space?
My work in public relations and at these different corporations and agencies have helped me enormously with my films, because at the end of the day, Rich, you and I know this, like, if there aren't eyeballs watching it, right, we you got to get fans in the seats, as they say, right? And so we're still, even though the issue, instead of having it be a hand cream, right, or it's a film, it's a story that we still want people to go and actively look for, find, and watch and react. And then we're asking a lot of our viewer, because then not only do we want them to watch it, then we're really asking them to do something about it.
Yeah.
So it does involve, inspiring, and it involves a dialogue with the consumer, with the constituency. And so whenever we're working on things like that, you have to have there's a marketing plan for everything.
Yeah.
There really is.
And again, in our dealings together too, I can tell that you really understand the importance. And I don't mean this this is a positive way of saying the word, but like the importance of packaging properly.
Absolutely.
The importance of how to, like, what's the one line that I can cut through to explain what this film is that people will hit on. Like, those are, again, the substance is the most important, but then, like you said, being able to distill it and articulate what it is and what the film's about and the impact of that film, and being able to do that in all of your materials and when you're just speaking about it is so critical, right?
Well said. Absolutely.
Yeah. And you have, years and years of experience. That's what you did for all your clients, I imagine. It's a big part of what you did, right?
A huge part of
telling
it.
that story.
A huge part of it. I really feel that all that training that I had, learning about writing, well, first of all, starting with writing the news, covering the news, then packaging the news, creating a narrative arc, speaking to different constituencies, marketing, advertising, all of the product development, all of that. Actually, I use all of it in my film space and what we're trying to do for every film.
Yeah. And not necessarily a skill set that people in the documentary film space have. A lot of them don't have that skill. Sometimes they're just, super focused on making a film, but they don't have that kind of experience and knowledge base. So from my experience, I know people like you're bringing that to the table that not a lot of people have.
No, that's exactly right. Yeah. I wish I would have taken a good accounting class. I can say that. I could have used, I could be,
especially accounting in Hollywood.
Oh my God.
A whole other
the numbers. You got to know the numbers, but
yeah.
I could have been a little bit, but
I have a sneaky suspicion you're pretty good at it.
Well, I hold my own. I have to, right? We have to do that, right, Rich? But the numbers matter, fortunately or unfortunately, the numbers matter. But, but you're right. I think people, listen, in storytelling, you need a lot of muscles. You have to use all these different muscles. Mm-hmm. And the muscles you don't have, you collaborate. That's the other thing I can't stress more is to find fabulous collaborators, because no one person, as you know, can do it all. And I have really surrounded myself with the best people. Talent, they're extraordinary. And in many cases, far better than I am in different areas. And I'm so proud of them. And we couldn't have done what we had to do in this field without them. So that's the other thing, is really choose your partnerships and your collaborators carefully, and be honest with yourself. Where you're not so strong in an area, go out and find the best person that is.
Right.
Give them all the support that they need to do what they have to do.
As you look the next 5 to 10 years, I know you have Artemis Rising Foundation. I know you've recently launched Artemis Rising Media. How do you see the next 5 to 10 years in the documentary film space for you? Is there any new places you want to go, or things that you want to do differently, or things you want to expand upon that you're doing now? Or what do you think about?
I love that. Well, the Artemis Rising Foundation is going to go even deeper into issues that matter most to us. And at the top of my list is mental health.
Okay.
I just think it's at the root of almost everything.
Yeah. And
it just goes into all aspects of life and relationships and addiction and recovery. I mean, it's everything. It's so important. And if our country and our world doesn't start to really take it more seriously, we're going to be in trouble. So the whole mental health space is becoming my number one priority now in approaching that topic, because in that topic is divided into categories. Untreated trauma, is a big part of it. Recovery, of course, but it can be done in all kinds of ways. That's why I'm so open to like humor. Humor is such a powerful tool, as we all know. It's so powerful. So I'd like to do more episodic series, dealing with the big issue of mental health, but opening up into spaces where people can really hear us, because people can hear very clearly when you infuse it with a little bit of joy and humor. Would that
include scripted, or you want to stay in the doc lane?
Oh no, it will include scripted too.
All right, okay.
Both. Scripted and unscripted. We're never going to leave the doc space. We're always going to look for help produce and help launch stories that need to get out into the world. So we'll always be doing that. And but we're also
about expansion.
That's right. But we're also looking to, with Artemis Rising Media, to partner. I'm really looking for the right partners to find and produce things that are also addressing very important things in the world and life and our culture, but a little bit more flexibility and a little bit more, a few more different characteristics around it, and I think we can cover a lot of ground by doing that as well. And also, listen, nothing wrong, as my husband likes to say or ask me, he'll say, Regina, are you ever going to make any money ever?
Oh, that.
After 200 social justice documentaries, he's like, and I mean, followed by, are you ever going to make a comedy ever? Those are the two key questions my husband likes to ask. And I said to him, I said, yes, we are to both of them. So I want to hold my end of that bargain with him. So because then we can turn around and put it right back into the foundation. So it's we want a sustainable model.
Right. No, that's really interesting. Well, I think as we conclude here, I think it'd be great to conclude with talking about some of our students, Georgetown students and young alumni. As I know you're aware of, because you've been incredibly supportive of the Film and Media Studies program that GEMA helped launch at Georgetown, probably 8 or 9 years ago now. A lot of Georgetown students are really interested in filmmaking from all levels, but a lot of interested creatively in making films, and a lot of our young alumni. What advice do you have for young people you see, or not even young people, but people emerging in that space? What's some advice you'd give them in terms of how to help build that career, that muscle?
I'm not surprised to hear that more and more Georgetown students are interested in media studies and film studies, because Georgetown is predicated on that philosophy of giving back. And so storytelling and films and the media, it's one of the greatest ways we can give back and shine a light on issues that need to be addressed and to be improved and worked on and changed, all those things. It's transformational. Stories are can transform anything. We know this. So
No doubt.
I'm not surprised to hear that Hoya students are going that way. And so for those that are turned on by this way of changing the world, my first thing is to really be honest and find out, what do you care about? What are the things you really care about? What are the things that if you could wave a magic wand, what would you want to see changed? Who do you want to help? What do you want to do in the world? Like that you'd burst if you couldn't help them, you'd burst. Like, so that's the first thing I ask people, like, what do you care about? And then when you start to identify that, I mean, that's what happened for me. I was like, wow, I have to do something about this, or I'm going to just, burst. And then when you do identify that, what is the best way you can find your voice? And it's really about cultivating and finding your voice. It may be through writing, it may be through film, it may be through art, and all of the arts, and then putting your whole heart and soul into it, and trying to find apprentice, because I think there's so much, we need mentors. I had them. Yep. And I tried to give that back too. No one gets to anywhere they have to go without the help of others.
Yes.
And then we have a responsibility to reach back and help the next team players, pass the baton, help them get to where they have to go.
Right.
So that's really, it's a beautiful cycle. And so I tell people, go find the best mentors and just ask them flat out. If you see someone you admire, you just go right up and say, can you be my mentor? They should say, Rich Batista, can you be my mentor? So, you have to go do that, just the same, and be prepared, because then as time goes on, people say, hey, can you be my mentor? And you have to just, that whole cycle has to have a life.
Right.
But those are the three things that I would say.
Yeah.
Identify what you care about, find your voice, and then 3, find the people and things or internships that can help you stepstone to get to where you have to go, because each one of those phases will help you open the door, and give you insights to move forward.
Yeah, those are really, really valuable nuggets. That's great. And once we're past COVID, I know the Film Media Studies group will love to have you on campus meeting with the students, because it's such a valuable piece of what our alumni get back to the university. And I mean, you have just such great insights to share and great experience to share. So I'm excited for that once we're all back to seeing each other in person.
Oh my God. Thank you. And I can't wait for that.
Yeah, I believe I'm with you. Regina, this has been fabulous. I really appreciate it. It's obviously just so interesting to hear about all you've done, and really excited about the film that's out now. And again, encourage everybody to see What Would Sophia Loren Do on Netflix. It's out today, so don't miss it. And thank you so much for being with us and being such a dedicated Hoya and one who loves to give back and loves the community.
Thank you so much, Rich. I'm honored, and it's a real thrill to do this interview with you. Thank you.
It's been great. Good luck with the film, and good luck with your mom and all the fun activities she's going to have around this film. It's really thrilling.
Thank you, and thank you for spreading the word.
100%. That's great.
It's so kind and generous. I appreciate it.
Excited to do it. Take care.
Take care.
All right.
Stay safe. Stay
We'll
safe.
see you soon.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye-bye.